Yes, in my opinion with the town-owned property, I'm in favor of finishing the mill as they want to use that as the town hall and so forth, but I don't know how many more town properties we can maintain. I don't know what they want to use the old town hall for, but I would not be in favor of maintaining both buildings.
So I am also in favor of getting the mill finished and getting town hall moved into it. I did sit in a selectmen's meeting and hear the price tag of what that was going to take. And I don't know how feasible that's going to be to pull off all at once, but I think that we should continue to plug at it. But I believe that as we finish areas of the mill, we should use them, move into them, and utilize them as the space becomes available. I also believe that we should work on rehabbing the old town hall and using it to develop a community center where the park and recreations could be, where veterans could gather, where other community-based programs, the seniors center, I'd love to see that come back. I've got a lot of input from the older generations that miss having that gathering and places like that to go. And to just throw in there town property, I would like that all of the town property be utilized to the best to its ability. The library, I believe, I very much believe that I would like to see plans go forward to do a study on their expansion.
All right, first of all, let me say a few words about myself. I was a town administrator in Sanbornton. I was a town administrator in Hopkinton. I was a town administrator in Bristol. And I was a town administrator until a couple of those were just fill in while we were doing searches for other people. But I'm well familiar with town budgets and how they operate. I'm a fiscal conservative, and the town shouldn't own properties unless they have an absolute need to own those properties. Two reasons. One, if you have property and you sell it, you get an immediate income to the town. Number two, if you sell the property, you get an ongoing income from the taxes on that property. As a town, if you own the property, you don't pay taxes on it, you don't collect taxes on it, and I'm just against that. When I was in the other towns, one of the things I did is look through the lists of town property and got warrant articles to get rid of a lot of the old town properties so that it could be used as tax base. I'd like to see the study on the town mill, what it's going to cost, and see how long it would take. I'm a little skeptical on the old town hall, because we had the building up behind the old town hall that we renovated to use for the town and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. And then a couple of years later, we tore it down to build a new police station. So I'm a fiscal conservative, and if you want me to be there, I'll be there. But I just would like to see more thought and more communications from the board and the people that are doing this to the people of the town, so they can really understand exactly what they're getting for their money.
All right. Our second question for the Belmont Selectmen is, what is your opinion of Article 44, which is asking the voters to rescind SB2?
Yes, like I said earlier, I've lived here for 12 years, and when we first came to Belmont, I saw the SB2 argument for either side. I will tell you that I have come to like the SB2 due to the fact that it gives people more of an opportunity for a Saturday versus spending maybe 8-10 hours on a Saturday. There's just not that many people that come to the meetings anymore, which is sinful, but it is what it is. And therefore, I want to keep the SB2.
So I'm going to read a little bit because from what I wrote earlier so I can stay on track. We had a deliberative session meeting, I believe, in this very room on February 4th, and there was a total of about this many people here. Only this many people, there was about 10 of them were town employees who don't actually live in town. Now, if it had been a town meeting instead of a deliberative session, those 50 people would have voted on these 44 articles and made the decision for 7,300 people that live in the town of Belmont. I believe that going back to town meeting, you're putting the voting session on one day in a couple of hours, that not everybody who lives in town, who's interested in what's going on in town, can meet in those hours. I think rescinding SB2 and going back to town meeting would take away people's rights to vote. As far as the comments that get thrown out about the general public, about them not understanding or not voting or not caring, comes back to what I think is the major problem is communication. Finding ways to get the information that's needed out to people so that we don't have people that that can say that people are not educated when they vote. I might have one more. No, that's it. Thank you.
I want to be odd man out on this. I've worked in towns with SB2, I've worked in towns that didn't have SB2. I like having a town meeting. I like people coming in and deliberating and talking about the warrant articles so they can see exactly what they're voting for, so they can see both sides. A lot of people just walk in, they pick up the ballot, and they just kind of close their eyes and, oh, well, that sounds good, but what's the other side? What's the flip side of the coin? So I'd like to see it go back to a town meeting. Yes, at first, you're going to have a very few people, like we have here tonight, who are coming to the meetings. But when people start to realize that this is their money, this is their taxes that they're talking about, hopefully we can get them to come back in and actually deliberate and decide what they want to do with their money.
Okay, this next question is for the school board candidates. Given that schools do not have access to unlimited funds, how do you plan to balance the needs of the students and the school with the needs of the taxpayers?
Being on the school board, you learn a lot about budgets, and it's the part that I hate the most. I know that principals and teachers do not just don't ask for things that they don't feel could benefit their students and that they need. We also know that there's a teacher shortage all over the nation. New Hampshire is no different. Jill and I were both on negotiation committees for the support staff and for the teachers, and we know that we need to stay competitive And also balance that out with hoping that the warrant article to give the raises will pass. And also keeping in mind that there are people in both towns with multi-generational, large pieces of property who you do not want to see taxed out of their homes. And I hate budgeting, it's the most difficult part of the job. And right now, support staff, our paraprofessionals, we're losing people. There were 6 paraprofessional jobs cut from the budget. Those jobs, actually there were 8 of them, 6 were cut, that were open, some of them almost 3 years. And in that same month that we were discussing this budget, we had lost, I think, 7 or 8 paraprofessionals or support staff. And a paraprofessional's job is really hard. There are sometimes with the same one-on-one student who might be in a mentally ill crisis, special needs, it's a very difficult job. And their pay is still well below, it's dismal. And we need to start paying people to retain people. We're losing people. We don't have 2 math teachers. You could work in Manchester for $20,000 more, they're still missing math teachers. We're in a crisis, and we have to balance that, though, with the needs of the citizens who live in the community, and it's extremely difficult, and it's not my favorite thing about it at all. But saying that, no one shows up to the meetings when we budget. We can't get people to serve on the citizens to serve on the budgeting committee. When we had the session in Canterbury to present the budget, I think there may have been 2 members of the community, and in Belmont, it was bad weather. We had 1, and he's sitting at the end of the table. We have to get community involved, but that means that we can't just want it and ask for it. People have to show up and be aware of everything that's going on with the budget, where your money is going. And also, that being said, because the robotics thing was mentioned, we had no idea until the money was asked for that that was even an issue. And I'm still not sure why we didn't. So, there's a lot to be discussed, but again, we're discussing it on our own. And it would be nice if other people, not nice, it's necessary that other people come and, know that's the communication piece. Come to the meeting, and that's where you'll get your communication. And, it's a fine line, and again, I don't love it. I don't love the budget, because it's very difficult. It's walking a fine line about what our needs are and what we can actually pay for.
This question is challenging because as a community, we all want to offer everything we can. We want to give stars in the moon to our students. But with that comes a cost. Quality education comes at a cost. And so budget season was probably the most eye-opening of my experience in the past 3 years. I didn't realize how many hours and hours and hours of work goes into the budget. Going line by line, looking at each thing, and really thinking about needs versus wants. How can we get creative? How can we make what we have work for our students, but also work for our taxpayers? As Amy mentioned, state funding doesn't help us. We rely on our taxpayers to foot a lot of the bill. And because that happens, and we have a different tax base than other areas' schools, we look to our community to support our schools. So as a member of the board, I did find a new appreciation for everyone that served before me and will serve after me at how much time and energy is put forth. I do appreciate the people that take the time to educate themselves and to understand what they're voting on ahead of time. Again, that getting more people involved, understanding the process. If anyone out here wants to serve on the Budget Advisory Committee for our school district, it's a great way to learn about the budget. And we did not have all those positions filled even this current year. So hopefully new members would want to jump in and learn more about the budget. But it is a great way for you to understand the budget and to understand what we're doing behind the scenes to try to make our schools the best that they can be.
I'm going to be the odd one out here because I'm not an educator. I don't know the inner workings of the school board. I'm not going to claim that I do. But I do work in financial compliance. So essentially, I'm a risk manager. And don't worry, I don't expect anyone here to want to listen to me talk in depth about my day job. That's not why we're here. But I do think that the skills that I do have from that are well versed to some of the things that Marcel and Jill are saying. The skills that I've required in order to do my job, I look at specific government rules and kind of look at I identify risks and I put procedures in place and things like that to mitigate those risks. So that's actually something that does interest me. And as a taxpayer and in the district and a parent to students in the district, I feel that performing a periodic deep dive of our budgets is something that we owe to everybody. And it's truly a vital step in kind of marrying the needs of the students and the needs of the taxpayers. So we all have a fiduciary responsibility to our students and our communities, and I think that a deep dive like that is a good way to start.
Well, budgets are not fun. And I can't say that you're odd man out. I don't mind budgets. I don't mind looking at the numbers. I don't mind asking questions. I don't mind talking about the white elephants in the room. I don't mind having those tough conversations. You know, whether it's within the district, whether it's with community members, whether it's with faculty, staff. The more that you're going to communicate and the more educated that a board is going to be, the better that they're going to be able to talk about that budget outside of the four walls of a school board meeting and outside of the four walls of a budget hearing. And the few budget hearings that I have been to, I'm sure people cringe when I walk in, because if I'm not seeing it or if I'm not understanding, I ask questions. And when I get the answers to those questions, I say thank you. And I'm going to have a better understanding of that $27 million budget. I think that's what it was for this upcoming school year. The duty and responsibility of any school, at least in my opinion, is that you're providing a base knowledge to students. You're setting them up to foster an intrinsic curiosity so that outside of the four walls of the school, students are going to learn and continue their learning and find something that they're interested in and take that road and develop it. Schools can't teach everything. It's impossible. I take that back. There are wealthy districts out there. There are the Hamptons, within New Hampshire that do have the ability. They have the student body, they have the student base, they have the tax base to offer far more things to students than exist in Canterbury or exist in Belmont. But we're not a Hampton. So you have to not necessarily hedge your bets, but you have to figure out what's important. And sometimes some of those high cost things are no longer important. Personally, I closed down multiple technology education programs because they figured out that the cost per pupil wasn't worth sustaining that program. And while I was involved, in those programs, it was terrible to see. It was terrible to experience. As a taxpayer, I get it. I understand it. But that's ultimately we need to figure out what's important within the district, what's important within the community. Teach those foundations, teach those basic skills, and ultimately, like I said, foster that intrinsic desire to learn so students can take that out of the four walls and continue it on their own.
I don't mind paying for an education. I don't mind paying for a good education. I'm a big complainer. Sometimes when my taxes went up, I went from paying like $5,500 a year to $7,400 a year, and I know a lot of that is education, because I looked into it. But I don't mind if I know that my child is getting a good education. Like, I wish I could pull her out and put her in Bishop Brady. I wish that was an opportunity, but that's not an option for me. I've looked into charter schools. I get disappointed when I go that route, because I'm proud of where I came from and I'm proud of where I graduated from. I can only promise I have a voice, and I'm not scared to use my voice. I feel like we should be getting more from the state. We need more money from outside sources, because we can't do this on our own. We can't, without taxing people out of here. Like, without having to have people sell their homes because they can no longer afford to live here, because their taxes are too high. We need maybe to write to the governor, which I don't have a problem doing. I don't have a problem contacting WMUR. What are other schools doing? Where are they finding their teachers? I don't mind paying for a good math teacher, but I have a problem paying for a bad one. You know, like, I feel like maybe teachers need progress reports. Just like kids get progress reports, like who's monitoring, I'm learning too, but who's monitoring this? If somebody's doing a bad job, maybe we should assess that situation and try to find an alternative. But yeah, I don't mind paying for a good education.
My question is, how would you connect with the community and parents to get them more involved in the schools?
I think that the schools right now are doing a lot to try to reach out to parents as far as letting them know of things going on. I have been hearing rumblings about parents feeling that, especially the upper grades, not getting the communication from the teachers that you would probably get at the elementary school level. And I think that is something that needs to be discussed. I would like to see more parent involvement again at school board meetings. I think it's important. We got a ton of people when it came down to masking or the mascot, but when it came down to, you know, Silas St. James presenting the curriculum, no one's there. But then I know there's been a lot of concern about how the instruction is being presented, especially in the middle and the high schools, at least from the rumblings. But there's that's not being, there's a breakdown somewhere with, you know, meetings. And also, I would like to hear more from teachers about what they think is going on. Do they feel that the way they're presenting instruction is the way that how do they feel about the way they're presenting the instruction? Do they feel that maybe this is the program that the district purchased and they need to follow the program?